Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, but also one of the biggest frustrations that lots of developers have, which is good old debugging. And to do that, we're going to be talking about a pretty cool new extension called Lightrun and how that can enable you to be more productive when debugging. So to do that, I am here with Eran and Tal from the Lightrun team. How are y'all doing?
Good. Nice to be here. Thank you for having us. Hi, Tal.
Hey, it's great to be here. Very exciting.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, just starting from the top, what is Lightrun? Or do you want to talk a little bit more about yourself and the team first before we hop into Lightrun?
Sure. So my name is Eran Kinsbrunner. I'm the global head of product marketing at Lightrun. I'm based out of Boston. Tal, feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Tal. I'm senior customer architect at Lightrun. Work closely with customers on the technical side and also a CNCF ambassador.
Awesome. Cool. So, you want to go into starting from the top so we're all on the same page?
Sure. So let's start. And thank you again for having us, Leslie. Let's start by introducing Lightrun, and then we'll move into the demo itself. So Lightrun is a developer observability platform that enables developers to solve, as you mentioned, one of the biggest problems, and this is troubleshooting complex remote and distributed workloads, applications. And nowadays, these applications are much more complex and getting complex day in and day out. The thing that we are seeing, and this is why Lightrun exists, is that observability as a term, as a technology, as a practice, was never built for developers. And that's why we believe that we need to shift it left towards the developers. And what we mean by that is that observability usually caters and serves the operators, the DevOps engineers, the SREs. And when something breaks, the developers suddenly feels disconnected from what is actually happening in real time, in production, or even in pre-production and staging environments. And we'll see it also in the demo how frustrating it can be. The thing about it, it's not just frustration, it's business. And what I mean by that is that the longer it takes for developers to get to the root cause and solve the pain points, the issues, the incidents, the pains that are in production, the MTTR is being compromised, which means the mean time to resolve the issue is long, and that also causes the rising of observability costs. It means that the longer it takes you to solve the issues, your customers are suffering. And then you need to do lengthy cycles of troubleshooting, which increases the cost of logs and telemetry data, APM tools, and the likes. And that's why exactly Lightrun exists. And this is where we talk about shift left observability. We believe that when you're trying to debug, trying to troubleshoot an issue at runtime, you need to do it from a dev native environment. The developer who wrote the code, that's the guy who needs to solve the issue. At the end of the day, you build it, you own it. That's what we believe. That's what the DevOps mantra is all about. But to do so, you need to be proactive. You need to do it in real time, and you need to be in the right context of what is happening in production, rather than relying on old logs, old telemetry logs, traces, metrics that were put, ages ago, and are maybe out of context and are not really helping you solve the issue. So with Lightrun, which is a dev native platform that resides within the IDE, within Visual Studio and other IDEs, developers feel a bit more confident, and they can act in a real timely manner when solving these P1, P2 incidents.
Cool. So we're like merging the gap between what somebody like a data scientist might do and enabling like actual developers to be able to identify those issues in real time without having to phone a friend or wait to get that information. Awesome.
Yeah, I can maybe share on my end before diving into the world of observability. As a developer, you always have these systems, and I remember on my first position, we were using classic APMs, Splunk, Datadog, etc. And these tools were never, I didn't feel like it was built for me as a developer. It was more of like an ops system. So what I'm going to show today and demonstrate is a different experience of observability using the Visual Studio extension that is maybe a more developer friendly, more built for the developers, allowing them, to debug, troubleshoot things much easier in a very fashion modern way. Yeah.
Sweet. I
Cool.
like it.
So I think my screen is shared, right? Do you see it, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Let's explain the debugging experience through a story. Okay, so the story is very simple. We live in a world of Kubernetes. Everything is deployed on the cloud, and I myself, I'm working on this .NET project. It does a couple of things, print some information of different entities, and my screen is actually divided into two. Okay, the right side, I'm going to actually in live spin up two pods. The pods are actually running this code that is on my left side, running on Visual Studio, and on the right side, I'm actually I just spawned these two pods, and I'm able to see the live tail of these pods. Okay, the logs coming from these pods, and these are actually true pods running on a cluster that is managed on AWS, on EKS. And what you can see on the right side is just some logs printed from this application. By the way, you see like things like hobbies, age, name. Obviously, the code is printing some stuff, and you can also see that some error. Right, you can see some error on the screen that is printed in the second pod as well. Now, I could have got this error from here. I could have got it from a different tool, some alerting tool, maybe in Splunk, in some other logging solution. But at the end, as a developer, I would like to understand where is this coming from. I mean, the application continues to run, and some point in the application is probably not fully supported, right? I mean, you get to see an error occurred, object reference not sent to an instance of an object. There is some issue here, right? Now, Leslie, what would a developer do, right? He will try to figure out what the problem is, and maybe try to reproduce it, right? I mean,
might be some trial and error involved.
Yeah, I mean, let's try to reproduce it locally. We're opening the code, right? We're trying to search. I mean, okay, I see the exception here, but I'm still, not sure. I mean, there's so many objects, and by the way,
Right.
there's also so many deployments, right? I mean, who runs, in a true production environment? Who runs just one cluster? It's usually, can be a lot of clusters, but not just necessarily. Yeah.
Something that works locally may not always work in production too. So
yeah, for sure, the configuration can be different. This is completely Dockerized. Here, I'm just running, the application in a very, naive way. So there is a challenge, right? There is a challenge, but still, we're used to work this way, right? To try to, in some way, work really hard sometime to just, get this error locally, so I can solve it, right?
Yeah.
Let's just mention that you can sometimes, when you're not able to find the root cause, you can add logs, missing logs, then redeploy the whole application, and then try to get some more information here, right? I mean, and then try to solve the issue. But my story today is I'm going to show a different approach of how to solve this issue. And of course, you saw this extension here. It's part of my vision. I pre-installed it. It here exists in the Visual Studio. It's a Lightrun extension. Now, in the Lightrun extension, you see a list of agents. And actually, if I'm opening this a bit, you can see that I have two agents that are available for me, in my developer workstation to troubleshoot. And these agents have a similar name as the Kubernetes pods. So it's like I'm actually seeing the live application that is running here available to me. Mm-hmm. Now, what I would like to also show here is that these agents are tagged with information. So I can see it's deployed in US East 1 in AWS, and it's in the dev environment. So imagine this like, in a multi-cloud, multi-region, multi-environment where you have pods running in dev, in staging, in production. You can have a full list of agents here. Now let's show the actual value, or what Eran was referring to. So what I know for sure is I see this exception here. Okay, an error occurred, and what I would like to do is to actually try to understand the root cause. So basically, using Lightrun, what you can do is insert a dynamic log without actually changing the code. What do I mean? I mean is that you can actually right-click here in this specific line, right? And you have a new option, Lightrun, and then you can add a log.
Ooh.
And there's a new opening window here, and I can choose where I would like to add this log. It's either to a specific pod, that is running from a specific agent, or I can just choose a tag that applies on 2 pods or on 5 pods, or all these agents we've seen, they're tagged with some tag. So I'm going to choose the tag. This tag applies on these 2 pods, and I'm going to print a new log. So I'm going to write hello Leslie. I didn't misspell it, right?
Yep, that is correct. I know some people spell it Ley, but
No,
LIE is cooler.
I'm being safe here. I'm just trying to be safe here, and I would like to add this hello Leslie log and print the person object. So this variable is available to me here, and maybe this will help me understand. Now again, I'm going to click create, and I didn't really this is not a code change, right? I didn't create a pull request. I didn't run any CI/CD or deployed any new image. The application continues to run, right? I didn't stop it or restart any pods. And what you see here is actually the information coming all the way to my Visual Studio, where this log is actually being printed here from the live environment. So I got to see hello Leslie. Okay, I got to see hello Leslie, and I get the actual variable person. And in this case, I can actually see the address is null. So this explains why the reference is not actually working, and now I can easily understand that maybe this object is missing the address part. Okay, so I can actually go to the code and see that in this case Jane Smith does not have the address object, so this is why the code is failing. Now that's of course just a simple issue, but usually that can save in a very complicated environments or complicated bugs a lot of time.
Totally.
Does it make sense what I just showed?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I like that you don't have to modify your code to use this, and that makes it really easy to just stay in the same debugging session that you might be in, and be able to view all these logs that you normally only see via the production lens, and get them in VS. That's pretty exciting. So not having to constantly swap windows, presumably, if you don't want to do that. That seems pretty nice.
Yeah, completely. I think it also aligns with the recent, it's recent, for the last years, everyone is trying to shift left, observability to security. And we're really trying to build a tool here that is suitable for the developer experience. As I said, my first experience, developer trying to solve issue, opening the APM, trying to figure out what's going on. Where you have such an extension built for the developers, the whole debugging process looks different. Yeah, completely. Now,
maybe just one comment, also interesting for you, Leslie. In a recent study that Microsoft actually published, I actually used it as a reference in one of our recent white papers. Microsoft actually told something that might be not surprising, but it's important to know, especially nowadays when everyone is building complex microservices, containerized applications, that over 30% of the root cause of issues, or even more, due to code-related bugs, and there are other portion of bugs that are due to configuration issues in the code and stuff like that. And that's exactly, when you're looking with and when you are working with a dev native extension like Tal is now showing you at runtime, that's exactly one of the I would say tools that can help you maybe in the next research that will be published by Microsoft. We'll see a big decrease in the root cause of code issues with this shift left observability, and actually with the empowerment of developers to take ownership in a better way of their code.
Absolutely. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, thanks, Eran, for that. And you know what I just showed, you know, is just the beginning. Basically, we also have a way in a very cool way. I'm also able using Lightrun to actually extract all variables and their state in a specific line. We decided to call that a snapshot. So it's a virtual breakpoint that doesn't stop the application. It means that in the same way, I'm going to create a snapshot in this line. And even I can even, if we all know the old-fashioned debugger where you have watch expressions, we even inserted the native language of a classic debugger into that. And here I'm going to choose to prioritize or use as a watch expression the person variable. So how would this snapshot look like? So I'm going to click create, and the application will actually still run on the right side. I won't actually stop it while I was able to fetch the first result coming from each of the pods. So you saw immediately hit was captured because the code continues to run. And if I go to the snapshot hits, I get exactly 2 hits that match the 2 pods, where you can see all the variables in that scope with the value. So you can see the exception, right? I mean, that's the null reference exception. Do you see the error object reference wasn't set properly? And if I open this a bit, you can see the problematic object that in this case had an address which equals null. This is, of course, under the glasses, which represents a watch expression. Now, again, I took this from the 2 pods, but potentially it can be from thousands of pods, 10 pods, just the pods that I need based on the tag. And you can see here, this is the second result coming from the second pod. So it's a cloud native. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, that's really cool. It actually reminds me of, it feels like an extended, to use the word, since it is an extension version of something that does exist in VS that I think is also just called a snapshot. But like if you go into your quick debugging menu that pops up by default, there's an option to view events that are sometimes logged, whether it's because you hit a breakpoint or an error occurred and stuff. But I think the difference with Lightrun and that default experience is that Lightrun, it seems like you have a lot more customization options about what is actually being logged or snapped in this case, and how it ultimately is going to display. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, completely. And I want to emphasize this part because we might see, on our IDE, on the developer workstation, we might see, some debugging experience, which might be locally or even remote debugging experience from a specific process. But what Lightrun was built for is, a much more advanced debugging experience that is suitable for the cloud native. Okay, so we created this since we understand that deployments today are complicated and are happening on multiple clusters, on multiple cloud providers, regions, and environments. So you have dev, staging, pre-production, production. You have Google Cloud, AWS, Azure. So it's complicated. And if we want to actually flow the debugging experience and allow the developer to really get the information that he needs, then we need to have enough features and capabilities that will allow him to do so. So even a snapshot, you can put a condition and just receive, you might say, wait, Tal, we can get thousands of results here, right? So we understand that we want to limit the amount of results and maybe put results in a specific condition. We have customers in the healthcare industry, and they would like to troubleshoot claim requests, they would like to troubleshoot transactions, they would like to troubleshoot users. We have conditions for that. Watch expression, is the classic debugging experience. And by the way, all this information is temporary. It doesn't not necessarily need to be persisted. As you can see, the log is dynamic and is expired after an hour. So the information is not actually, doesn't necessarily have to be persisted for the long term. It allows the developer to just debug and get the information that he needs at the specific moment. So
Cool.
that's the approach.
Awesome. And based off of some of those options, my related question from there, I guess, is are there any performance concerns that users have to consider when they're creating those logs and creating those snapshots?
Yeah, great question. So let's talk about this part. So Lightrun is a completely secured solution. In that context, we have a sandbox that is implemented within our agent. It means that all the operations the developer is doing, either when inserting a dynamic log or taking a snapshot, it's only a read-only operations. You cannot run any system calls. You cannot change the state of variables. So it's completely protected. By the way, the information that you see here is also limited in a buffer. So developer cannot bring just unlimited information to his IDE. And also on top of it, we have PII reduction capabilities that allow you to hide sensitive information. So with all of that, including the fact that the amount of CPU is quoted, it's a completely secured solution, and we have customers who are running this in high loads in production for a while. So we thought about that as well, and we took care of the whole security, sensitive data, etc.
And just to complement Tal, from a runtime performance payload, this is totally negligible. These agents are kind of lazy agents, so they only operate and wake up when a developer from the workstation is asking to get a new log, a new snapshot. And even with that, it's very, very minimal. We are doing all the performance testing and related measurements to make sure that there is zero to none, to near nothing, if you like, impact on the runtime applications or even pre-production applications that are using Lightrun.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to also emphasize something here, because you might see such a thing for the first time. You would say, wait, what about the existing logs? This solution is not coming, to replace any existing static solutions. We're not saying don't use logging. We're just saying that on top of what is logged, sometimes the developer just needs to add, there is a missing log or there's a missing piece of information. So that can be dynamically created using Lightrun, including the existing logs that can serve him for the purpose of troubleshooting. So this is actually a complementary solutions to common APMs that the developers are using, and we expect them to use both. Right? You can take your logs coming from Splunk, from Datadog, from your Relic, and if you're missing a log or information, you can quickly get that using Lightrun. And for when you combine both of them, we actually push this KPI of mean time to resolution much down, okay, and it increased that immediately. Okay, so we've seen customers troubleshoot for weeks, days, and once they are able to take such a snapshot or add the missing log without redeployment, without changing the code, without creating any pull request, their lives are much easier.
Yeah, I agree. It seems a whole lot less stressful than it is to, and also just faster in general, just not having to have those bottlenecks of like creating a PR, phoning a friend for help, or your local data science, or having to pull up Datadog or something like that.
Yeah,
So
completely. And actually, Lightrun took this challenge of covering all enterprise related features like SSO, scheme, PII reduction, role-based access control. So even you might say, wait, Tal, there's probably in a larger organization thousands of agents running. Not all developers have to see all their agents, right? So of course this can be grouped and to what we call different groups of agents, so that you can manage such access to different agents. And on top of having a cloud native debugger, this is a solution that can involve SSO, role-based access control, PII reduction, and other enterprise capabilities in order to make it a production-ready solution.
sweet. One of the questions I'm curious about, and maybe it's on the table or maybe it's not, but as a potential idea, it would be really cool if you could share this information between teammates. Like if you wanted to tag team a debugging session, you wanted to share the snapshots that you created without having to have the other person
Sure.
manually create
Yeah.
them. That would be a cool feature to have, just thinking about it.
Yeah. Also, yeah. Go ahead, Don.
So actually, we already have it. You actually took my thought. That's exactly what I wanted to jump in and say, because when you mentioned, the developers and the daily activities, that's exactly what you can do within the extension. You can actually, what Tal was demonstrating, taking dynamic logs and snapshot, you can actually share these logs and snapshots from like using a right click from the extension itself with your peer developers, either for reviewing them or just sharing the incident and the outcomes. So making this kind of a debugging session within your team, if you like. So you can actually do it already within the extension. You can share actions. And one last thing, what we have just demonstrated in today's session is also supported in the other Microsoft IDEs, VS Code and VS Code.dev. So trying to support the entire Microsoft developer community here.
Very exciting. Cool. You already beat me to the punch on my ideas. So that's really cool. And so this is a new extension. And so I'm curious, one, what's next? And also, is it available for use today?
So I'll jump to the last slide. And basically, the extension is, as we speak, is being finalized to be available in the marketplace extension. To get to get going with the extension, I'm putting here on the screen the link. We actually, this link is live already, so you can just go to the lightrun.com, plug in Visual Studio. You can actually read more and learn more. You can actually see an embedded demo of the extension already in the page, and the extension is going to be in the coming days, it's going to be available in the marketplace, so you can actually start using it. You can book a demo from the webpage with us. You might get a chance to meet with me and Tal again, and we can get you started fairly easy and help you live debug your .NET applications from Visual Studio.
Exciting. Sweet. And hopefully to the viewers in the future, if you're watching this, chances are the extension will probably already be available in the marketplace by then. So yes. Really cool. And yeah, anything else you want to share as like a call to action?
No, just feel free to follow us, because to your earlier question, Leslie, we are continuously innovating. So we are going to add more and more capabilities to these extensions. We are already, I'm just teasing, playing with AI, algorithms, and much more advanced capabilities of live debugging. So get in touch with us. We are very active in the community, both, again, as I mentioned, in the VS Code and VS Code.dev, and now within the Visual Studio extension marketplace. So just follow us, and we are hoping that we can solve some of your troubleshooting issues with this new extension.
Cool. We love seeing how to make debugging less headache inducing on this show. So very exciting stuff. So Eran and Tal, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really cool extension. To all the viewers out there, go check it out if and when it makes its way to the marketplace. I should just say when. It is coming to the marketplace, but depending on when you're watching this, it might already be there. So thank you all and happy coding.